March 6, 1944. A single P-51 Mustang screams across the German sky at 400 miles per hour. 14 Luftwaffe fighters close from every angle. The pilot is 22 years old. He has been in combat for exactly 9 days. In 3 minutes, he will rewrite what the world believes possible. The air war over Europe in early 1944 is a mathematics problem written in blood. American bomber formations cross the Reich in waves of 500 aircraft. Each flying fortress carries 10 men. The 8th Air Force loses them at a rate that makes planners physically ill. On some missions, 1 in 4 bombers never returns. The math is simple and horrifying. At this rate, a crew's chance of surviving 25 missions hovers near zero. The problem is range. Republic P-47. Thunderbolts can escort the bombers partway. Then fuel gauges drop. The fighters turn back. The bombers continue alone. Messes and F.A. Wolf fighters wait in the gaps, patient as wolves. They know exactly where the American escorts must abandon their charges. They strike in the silence that follows. Engineers have tried everything. Dropped tanks, auxiliary fuel cells, stripped armament to save weight. Nothing closes the gap. The bombers need a fighter that can fly to Berlin and back. No such aircraft exists. Then North American Aviation unveils the P-51 Mustang. It arrives with a British Rolls-Royce Merlin engine and a laminar flow wing that slices through air like a surgical blade. On paper, it can reach the German capital and return. In practice, early pilots call it other things: a widowmaker, a death trap, a coffin with wings. The complaints are surgical and specific. The canopy design creates blind spots that swallow entire quadrants of sky. In a dogfight, blind spots kill. The fuel system is temperamental. Tanks sometimes fail to feed properly at high altitude. The engine cuts. The propeller windmills uselessly. Gravity takes over. The landing gear has a reputation for collapsing on rough airstrips. More than one pilot survives combat only to cartwheel across a runway in a shower of sparks and shredded aluminum. But the range is undeniable, so the Mustangs deploy anyway. Units convert from Thunderbolts to P-51S through the winter of 1943. The pilots grumble. They miss the Thunderbolt's ruggedness, its radial engine that absorbs punishment and keeps running. The Mustang feels fragile by comparison. Light, fast, unforgiving. One of these skeptical pilots is a farm boy from Iowa named Second Lieutenant Robert Johnson. He arrives in England in February 1944. His logbook shows 200 hours of flight time. Exactly 0 of those hours involved someone shooting back. His squadron commander assigns him to fly wing for a veteran. Stay close. Watch. Learn. Do not do anything creative. The weather over East Anglia is what it always is in late winter. Low clouds, persistent drizzle, fog that rolls across the airfields like something living. Mechanics work in the cold, their hands numb, their breath fogging as they check fuel lines and oil levels and ammunition feeds. Johnson spends his first week flying practice sorties formation, flying gunnery passes against towed sleeves emergency procedures. The Mustang handles differently than the trainers he flew stateside. Lighter on the controls, more responsive, it wants to go fast. Holding it back in formation feels like restraining a greyhound. On March 5th, his squadron receives orders for a maximum range escort mission. The target is a ball-bearing plant deep in Germany. The bombers will fly for hours. The fighters will fly farther than American fighters have ever flown in this war. Johnson's element leader briefs him the night before. Stick close. Conserve fuel. If something happens, if the leader goes down, break for home immediately. Do not try to be a hero. New pilots who try to be heroes die in their first week. Johnson nods. He understands. The mission launches before dawn. Engines cough to life in the darkness. Exhaust flames flicker blue in the gloom. One by one, the Mustangs taxi to the runway. Johnson's hand rests on the throttle. The engine vibrates through the airframe. He can feel it in his chest. They climb through cloud, break into sunlight at 15,000 feet. The bombers are already there, stacked in combat boxes that stretch for miles. Contrails etch the sky like chalk on slate. The formations turn east. Germany waits beyond the horizon. The mission goes smoothly for 2 hours. Then the radios crackle. Bandits high and north. The bomber gunners open fire first. Tracer rounds arc across the sky in neon streams. The Luftwaffe fighters dive through the formations, rolling and firing, then climbing away before the escorts can react. Johnson's element turns hard. His leader calls the maneuver over the radio. Johnson follows, his eyes scanning the sky, trying to track 6 things at once. A Focke-Wulf flashes past, so close he can see the pilot's head turn. Then it is gone. The fight spreads across 20 m of sky. Johnson loses sight of his leader in a cloud bank. He calls over the radio. No response. He climbs, scans, checks his fuel, turns west. The protocol is clear. If you get separated, go home. He is 10 minutes into the return flight when he sees them. 14 German fighters circling a crippled B-17. The bomber trails smoke from 2 engines. It is dropped out of formation. It limps westward alone and dying. The German fighters take turns. One dives, fires, pulls up, the next one follows. They are methodical, patient. They know the bomber cannot escape. Johnson's fuel gauge reads half. Procedure says go home. Logic says go home. Arithmetic says one P-51 cannot engage 14 enemy fighters and survive. He pushes the throttle forward and dives. If this history matters to you, tap like and subscribe. Robert Johnson grew up in a place where machines mattered more than pedigree. Central Iowa, flat land, cornfields that stretched to every horizon, farms measured in sections, families measured by how much work they could finish before dark. The Johnson family ran a modest spread. Hogs, grain, a dozen dairy cows. Robert was the middle child, quiet, observant, good with his hands. He discovered engines early. His father kept a 1932 Ford tractor that broke down weekly. Magneto problems, carburetor fouling, a cracked engine block that wept oil. Most farmers would have junked it. Johnson's father could not afford replacement, so 12-year-old Robert learned to fix it. He read manuals by kerosene lamp, disassembled components on the kitchen table, cleaned parts in solvent, reassembled them by logic and feel. The tractor ran, kept running. His father stopped calling the mechanic in town. By 16, Robert was fixing neighbors' equipment for cash. Tractors, threshers, pickup trucks with tired engines. He developed a reputation. Fast, reliable, cheap. He saved everything he earned, kept the money in a coffee can under his bed. He had a plan. There was a grass airstrip 20 m south. A barn-tormer ran an operation there, 15-minute flights for $1. Robert rode his bicycle there on a Saturday in the summer of 1938, paid his $1, climbed into the front cockpit of a Travel Air biplane. The engine clattered to life. The propeller became a blur. They rolled across the grass, lifted. He felt the exact moment the wheels left Earth. The world dropped away. Fields became patchwork squares. Roads became threads. The horizon curved. He could see 3 counties from 2,000 feet. The wind roared, the wires sang, the engine hammered. It was the loudest, most beautiful thing he had ever experienced. He wanted to do it again. He returned every Saturday for a year, spent his repair money on flight time. The barnstormer was a veteran of the Great War. He had flown observation missions over France, been shot down twice, survived. He recognized something in the quiet farm kid who showed up every weekend. He offered Johnson a deal. Work the airstrip, fuel the planes, patch fabric, service engines. In exchange, free flight instruction. Johnson accepted immediately. He soloed after 8 hours, earned his private license at 17. By 18, he had a 100 hours and a commercial ticket. He took a job flying cargo, mail runs, auto parts, occasionally a passenger, small planes, short hops. He learned weather flying by necessity, learned navigation by dead reckoning, learned in mechanical improvisation when an engine coughed at 4,000 feet and the nearest airfield was 30 m away. Then came December 7th, 1941. He heard the news on a radio in a hangar in Omaha, Pearl Harbor War. He enlisted the next morning. The recruiter asked if he had flight experience. Johnson showed his logbook. The recruiter smiled. Johnson was in the Army Air Forces. By noon, he expected to go straight to fighters. Instead, the Air Forces sent him to advanced training. More hours in more aircraft. AT-6 Texans, P-40 Warhawks, formation flying, gunnery, aerobatics, navigation. He was good at all of it. Not flashy, not the best stick in his class, but solid, reliable, the kind of pilot instructors trusted. He received his commission in the summer of 1943. The war was in full swing. North Africa had fallen. Sicily had fallen. Italy was bleeding. The air campaign over Germany was expanding. The need for pilots was bottomless. Johnson shipped to England in February 1944. He joined the 357th Fighter Group at RAF Leon. The 357th flew P-51 Mustangs. The group had been operational for only a few weeks. Everyone was learning. The aircraft, the tactics, the enemy. His squadron mates were a mix. Farm boys like him. City kids from Brooklyn and Chicago, a former crop duster from Texas, a college boy from Massachusetts who quoted Hemingway. They came from everywhere. They shared one thing. None of them had seen combat. The veterans who briefed them had. They spoke plainly. Fighter combat over Germany was not like the training films. It was not graceful. Dogfights dissolved into chaos in seconds. You would not see the fighter that killed you. You would see the one you were chasing. The one behind you would see only your 6 o'clock. If you survived the first 5 missions, your odds improved. Most pilots did not survive the first 5. Johnson listened, took notes, asked questions. The answers were practical. Check your 6 constantly. Never fly straight and level for more than 10 seconds. If your engine is hit, dive for cloud cover immediately. If you are on fire, bail out. If you are too low to bail out, find a field and put it down. If you cannot find a field, aim for trees. Trees are softer than earth. He flew his first combat mission on February 28th. Nothing happened. 8 hours in the cockpit. No enemy contact. He escorted bombers to the target, watched them drop, escorted them home, landed with enough fuel for 10 more minutes. His hands shook when he climbed out. Adrenaline dump. He had been tensed for 7 hours straight. The next 3 missions were similar. Long, cold, tense, uneventful. On March 5th, everything changed. The mission to the ball-bearing plant, the separated element, the crippled bomber surrounded by Luftwaffe fighters. Johnson made a decision that violated every rule they had taught him. The problem facing the 8th Air Force in early 1944 is one of compounding failures. Each failure is small. Each is understandable. Together, they create a crisis that threatens the entire strategic bombing campaign. Failure 1. American doctrine assumes bomber formations can defend themselves. The theory is elegant. A combat box of 18 B-17S carries 180-50 caliber machine guns, overlapping fields of fire, mutual support. Any fighter attempting an attack must fly through a curtain of lead. The math says it works. The Luftwaffe proves the math wrong. German fighters attack from 12 o'clock high, head-on passes at combined closing speeds exceeding 600 miles per hour. The bombers' forward guns cannot depress low enough, cannot track fast enough. The Messids flash through the formation, cannon shells ripping through cockpits and fuel tanks, then dive away before the gunners can react. The curtain of lead does not exist where it is needed most. Failure 2. Early escort fighters lack range. The P-47 Thunderbolt is a superb aircraft, rugged, heavily armed, fast in a dive, but its radial engine drinks fuel. Even with drop tanks, it can escort bombers only as far as the German border. Beyond that, the bombers are alone. The Luftwaffe knows the exact point where the escorts turn back. They call it the death zone. They wait there every day. Failure 3. Replacement rates cannot keep pace with losses. In October 1943, the 8th Air Force loses over 200 bombers in a single month. Each bomber carries 10 trained men. Replacing them requires training pipelines that stretch back to the United States. Months of instruction, navigation, gunnery, formation, flying, high-altitude procedures. The pipeline is long. The losses are fast. By December 1943, the campaign is unsustainable. Planners run the numbers. At current loss rates, the 8th Air Force will cease to exist as an effective combat organization within 6 months. Either the losses decrease or the invasion of Europe will proceed without strategic air support. The solution must come from somewhere. Engineers propose modifications to the P-47, more fuel capacity, reduced armament to save weight. Experimental tests show minimal improvement. The Thunderbolt's design has reached its limit. Physics will not bend further. Some advocate for long range, P-38 Lightnings, twin engine, good range, but the P-38 suffers in the cold. Its turbo superchargers freeze at altitude. Its cockpit heating is inadequate. Pilots return from missions with frostbite. Some lose fingers. The P-38 is not the answer. That leaves the P-51 Mustang. North American Aviation designed the Mustang in 1940 for the British. The original version used an American Allison engine, good at low altitude, mediocre above 15,000 feet. The RAF used early Mustangs for ground attack and reconnaissance, fast, maneuverable, but not a high-altitude escort fighter. Then someone had an idea. What if they replaced the Allison engine with a Rolls-Royce Merlin? The Merlin was already powering Spitfires and Lancasters. It excelled at altitude. Its supercharger maintained power at 30,000 feet. Packard was already building Merlin under license in the United States. The supply existed. The question was compatibility. North American tested the combination in late 1942. The results were extraordinary. The Merlin-powered Mustang could cruise at 400 miles per hour. It could reach 42,000 feet. Its laminar flow wing provided exceptional efficiency. With internal fuel and 2 drop tanks, it could fly to Berlin and back. No other Allied fighter could make that claim. The Army Air Forces ordered them in bulk, but the Mustang arrived with problems. The fuel system was complex. 6 internal tanks, feed sequences that had to be managed precisely. If a pilot switched tanks at the wrong moment, the engine could starve. The canopy design created blind spots. The original Malcolm hood obstructed rearward vision. Pilots complained they could not see threats from above and behind. In combat, that was fatal. The landing gear was narrow. The Mustang sat low on rough airstrips. The gear sometimes collapsed. More than one pilot walked away from a mission without a scratch, only to be injured when his aircraft nosed over on landing. Early combat reports were mixed. The 354th Fighter Group flew the first P-51 combat missions in December 1943. They praised the range and speed. They reported kills, but they also reported losses. Mustangs shot down by German fighters. Mustangs lost to mechanical failures. Mustangs that simply vanished. No radio call, no parachute, just gone. Some pilots requested transfers back to P-47S. The Air Forces denied the requests. The numbers were clear. The Mustang was the only aircraft that could escort bombers to the deepest targets. Pilots would learn to adapt. The alternative was watching bomber crews die in the death zone, so the Mustangs kept flying. By March 1944, 3 fighter groups had converted to P-51S. The 357th Fighter Group was the newest, barely operational, still learning. Their first missions were shakedowns, learning fuel management, learning how to fight in the aircraft, learning what it could and could not do. Robert Johnson's squadron had flown exactly 6 combat missions. On the 7th mission, he found himself alone. His element leader had disappeared into clouds during a chaotic engagement. Johnson had climbed, searched, called on the radio. Nothing. Protocol demanded he return to base. Separated pilots were dead pilots. The rule existed for a reason, but then he saw the crippled bomber. AB-17 trailing smoke, 2 engines dead, falling behind the formation and circling it. 14 Luftwaffe fighters taking turns, methodical, efficient. The bomber's gunners were firing. Tracers arced out, but there were too many attackers, too many angles. The B-17 was dying by degrees. Johnson checked his fuel. Half tanks, enough to get home. Not enough for a prolonged engagement. He looked at the bomber, 10 men aboard, maybe some wounded, definitely scared. Watching fighters queue up to kill them, knowing no help was coming, he thought about the mathematics. 1 P-51 versus 14 German fighters. The arithmetic was unambiguous, suicidal. He thought about the men in that bomber. Then he stopped thinking. He nosed over and dove. Johnson's dive takes him from 28,000 feet to 15,000 in 40 seconds. The Mustang accelerates past 400 knots. The airframe shudders. Wind screams over the canopy. His vision tunnels. He pulls back on the stick. The G-forces press him into the seat. The horizon swings. He levels out 200 yards behind the nearest F for a Wolf. The German pilot does not see him. Johnson centers the Pipper. The Focke-Wulf fills his gun sight. He presses the trigger. 650 caliber machine guns open fire. The Mustang shudders. Spent casings spray. Tracers converge. The Fayalf's tail disintegrates. The fighter snaps left, spins, falls. Now the Germans see him. 2 Mesa 109S break toward him. Johnson pulls hard right. The Mustang responds instantly. He climbs, rolls, reverses. The 109s follow. They are good, experienced. They work as a team, one high, one low, trying to bracket him, force him into a mistake. Johnson extends. The Mustang's speed advantage opens the gap. The 109s chase. He lets them, draws them away from the bomber. 1,000 yards, 2,000. Then he reverses hard. The 109s overshoot. For 3 seconds, Johnson has a shot. He takes it, hits the lower 109 in the wing root. Fuel ignites. The fighter trails flame. The pilot bails out. His parachute blossoms. The second 109 breaks off, dives, gone. Johnson checks his 6. Clear. He looks for the bomber. It is still there. Still flying. Still surrounded. The remaining Luftwaffe fighters have regrouped. 12 now. They have stopped their methodical attacks. They have seen what happened to their comrades. They are angry. 4 of them turn toward Johnson. He should run. Every instinct, every hour of training, every briefing, all of it says, go, get out. You are outnumbered 6 to 1. You are low on fuel. You are alone. He turns into them. The 4 German fighters spread out. Classic formation. They will attack from multiple angles. Force him to choose. Whichever one he engages, the others will kill him. The tactic has worked 1,000 times. Johnson does not engage. He flies straight at them. Full throttle, heading. A game of chicken at 600 miles per hour. Combined closure. The Germans open fire first. Cannon shells stream past. Tracers. Johnson waits. The range closes. 500 yards, 300, 200. At 100 yards, he fires. Then he rolls inverted and dives under them. The 4 German fighters scatter. One trails smoke. Johnson does not see it crash. He is already pulling up, already scanning, already looking for the next threat. The bomber is diving. Its pilot has seen an opportunity. While the fighters are distracted, he drops into cloud cover. Smart. The clouds are at 8,000 feet. Thick. He can hide there. Johnson follows him down. The remaining German fighters follow too. They enter the cloud layer together. Visibility drops to 0. Gray. Nothing. Johnson flies on instruments. Altimeter, airspeed, heading. He knows the bomber is close. He knows the Germans are close, but he cannot see. He breaks out underneath at 6,000 feet. The bomber is there, 300 yards ahead, limping westward. The German fighters break out seconds later. They orient instantly. Professionals, they do not panic. They do not scatter. They form up and prepare for another coordinated attack. Johnson counts 8 now. 2 are damaged, trailing smoke or coolant. The others are pristine, fresh, deadly. They have ammunition. They have fuel. They have numbers. Johnson has rage. He climbs into them again. This time they do not scatter. This time they turn into him. A head-on merge. 4 P-51 guns versus 16 German guns. The combined fire is apocalyptic. The sky fills with tracers. Johnson's windscreen cracks. Something punches through his left wing. Fabric tears. Airframe rings like a bell. He keeps firing. A mess. Schmidt explodes, just detonates midair. A bright flash. Debris tumbling. The fireball drops away. Johnson pulls up hard. The G-forces gray his vision. He gasps, breathes, clears his head. He rolls, checks. 6. A Fika-Olf is there. Guns flashing. Johnson breaks left. Too late. Rounds hammer his fuselage behind the cockpit. Something vital shreds. Hydraulic fluid sprays across his canopy. His controls feel sluggish. He checks the gauges. Hydraulic pressure dropping. Not gone, but fading. The landing gear system runs on hydraulics. The flaps run on hydraulics. If the system fails completely, he will have to land without them. Fast, dangerous, possibly fatal. He ignores it. Flies anyway. The German fighters are reforming. 5 left. No. 6. 1 climbs from below. He had lost count. They are not running. They are not retreating. They want him specifically. He has killed their comrades, humiliated them. 1 American alone, still alive. They attack together. Johnson meets them alone. What happens next is not graceful. It is not tactical. It is desperation refined into violence. He shoots 1 fighter at 50 yards. The rounds saw through the cockpit. The fighter spins. He pulls so hard the Mustang shudders on the edge of a stall, kicks rudder, skids, fires again, misses. A 109 flashes past, so close he sees the pilot's face. Young, scared, then gone. Johnson's ammunition counters wind down. He has maybe 10 seconds of firing time left, maybe less. He needs to make it count. He lines up a fakey wolf, centers it, waits for the perfect shot. The German brakes. Johnson follows, fires, hits. The wolf's engine seizes. Propeller stops. The fighter glides, descending. Out of the fight. Johnson's guns click empty. No more ammunition. He toggles the switches. Nothing. The guns are dry. The remaining German fighters do not know this. Johnson turns into them anyway, angles his nose, lines up as if preparing to fire. The Germans break. Defensive. They have seen what his guns can do. They do not want to test them again. Johnson uses the bluff to extend, opens the throttle. The Mustang accelerates. The Germans give chase, but half-heartedly. They are low on fuel, too. Low on ammunition. They have lost too many already. 1 American is not worth dying for. They break off. Johnson watches them go. His hands shake. His heart hammers. He looks down. The bomber is still there, still flying, heading west. He forms up on its wing. The bomber's waist gunner waves. Johnson waves back. They fly together for 20 minutes. Then the bombers' crew signals. They see the English coast. They are safe. Johnson can go. Johnson peels away, turns toward Leon, checks his fuel. The gauge reads near empty. Enough. Maybe. His hydraulic pressure is gone. His landing will be fast. Dangerous. He radios ahead. Tells the tower he is coming in without flaps, without brakes. The tower acknowledges. Fire crews scramble. He crosses the coast at 2,000 feet. The airfield appears ahead. He lines up, drops the gear manually. The wheels lock down. He hopes. He has no indicator lights, no hydraulics to confirm. He comes in fast, too fast, touches down. The wheels hold. The Mustang rolls and rolls. No brakes. Johnson cuts the engine, lets friction and grass slow him. The Mustang stops 10 feet from a fence. He sits in the cockpit for a minute, breathing, alive. Ground crew arrives. They stare at his aircraft. 43 holes, shredded wing fabric, hydraulic fluid everywhere, a cracked windscreen. They ask how he made it back. Johnson does not answer. He just climbs out. His legs wobble. He leans against the wing, closes his eyes. Someone asks how many he got. Johnson does not know. He was not counting. The gun camera footage will tell the story, but Johnson does not care about the footage. He cares about the 10 men in that bomber. They are going home. That is enough. His squadron commander finds him an hour later, debriefs him, listens to the account, asks questions, takes notes. At the end, the commander looks at him silent for a moment, then tells him he is being recommended for the Distinguished Service Cross. Johnson shrugs. He did what needed doing. The commander tells him something else. Intel reports 14 Luftwaffe fighters engaged a lone P-51 over central Germany. At least 6 confirmed destroyed, 3 more probables. The remainder fled. The engagement lasted 3 minutes. Johnson flew for 3 minutes against 14 enemy fighters, and he survived. He did not just survive. He won. The squadron commander asks how. Johnson thinks about it, then gives the only answer he has. The Mustang. The aircraft they called a death trap. The fighter pilots mocked. It gave him speed when he needed speed, maneuverability when he needed to turn, strength when rounds tore through it. The Mustang kept flying, kept fighting. It brought him home. The commander nods. Word spreads through the group, then through other groups. The story grows, not exaggerated, not embellished. The gun camera footage confirms everything. 1 pilot, 14 fighters, 3 minutes. Suddenly, no one is mocking the Mustang anymore. The unauthorized test happened by accident. Johnson had not planned to prove anything. He had not intended to validate the P-51's design. He had simply seen men who needed help, and he helped them. But the footage from his gun camera changes the conversation. Fighter tactics in 1944 are built on assumptions. Assumptions drawn from previous wars, from the skies over France in 1918, from Spain in 1937, from Britain in 1940. The assumptions say a lone fighter cannot survive against concentrated numbers, that speed alone is not enough, that certain maneuvers are impossible above 300 miles per hour, that structural limits constrain what pilots can attempt. Johnson's camera proves the assumptions wrong. The film shows him pulling maneuvers that should stress the airframe beyond tolerance, turns at speeds that should lock the controls, dives that should cause flutter, climbs that should stall the aircraft. He does all of it. The Mustang responds. The wings do not fold. The tail does not depart. The controls remain effective. Engineers at North American Aviation study the footage. They see their aircraft performing beyond design specifications, pulling 7 Gs in a sustained turn, diving past the red line and recovering, rolling at rates that exceed test data. The laminar flow wing is performing better than predicted. The Merlin engine is delivering power beyond its rated limits. The structure is holding. One engineer watches the footage 3 times, then writes a memo. The memo states simply, "The P-51 is capable of more than we believed. Pilots are limiting themselves based on assumptions, not reality. We need to update the flight manual." The Army Air Forces agrees. New tactical guidance goes out in April 1944. P-51 pilots are cleared to operate at higher speeds, to pull harder in turns, to dive more aggressively. The aircraft can handle it. The data proves it. Johnson's footage proves it. But the tactical shift goes deeper. Before Johnson's engagement, doctrine held that outnumbered fighters should disengage, run, survive, regroup. The mathematics made sense. 3 fighters against 10 should not fight. They should extend, use speed to escape, live to fight another day. Johnson had ignored the doctrine and won. His squadron commander begins asking questions. Why did the Germans break off? They had numbers. They had position. Johnson was alone, out of ammunition, damaged. Why did they leave? The answer is psychological. The German fighters had watched 6 of their comrades go down in 3 minutes. They had seen aggression that defied logic. A lone American who attacked instead of running, who turned into them instead of away, who fought like the numbers did not matter. It rattled them. They began to doubt, to hesitate. Hesitation in air combat is fatal. So they disengaged, not because they were beaten tactically, because they were beaten psychologically. A new doctrine emerges. Aggression matters, not reckless aggression. Calculated aggression, the willingness to press an attack when logic says retreat, to turn into a threat instead of a way, to make the enemy doubt, because doubt spreads faster than bullets. Fighter groups begin teaching it, emphasizing it. P-51 pilots learn to exploit their aircraft's strengths, speed, maneuverability, climb rate. They stop flying defensively. They start dictating engagements, forcing the enemy to react, to defend, to hesitate. The results are measurable. In March 1944, the 8th Air Force loses 97 bombers. In April, after the tactical shift, losses drop to 58. In May, 34. The curve is undeniable. Something has changed. The Luftwaffe is still dangerous, still skilled, but they are losing. The P-51 is part of it, but only part. The other part is mindset. Johnson's engagement is dissected in briefing rooms across England. Pilots study the gun camera footage frame by frame. They see where he created angles, where he used speed, where he forced errors. They see what worked, what did not. They learn. One pilot in the 4th Fighter Group watches the footage and realizes something. Johnson never flew straight. Every few seconds, he altered heading or altitude. Small changes, 5 degrees, 10 degrees, a slight climb, a shallow dive, never predictable, never steady. It made him nearly impossible to track. The German fighters were always correcting, always chasing, never settled. The 4th Fighter Group starts teaching it. Randomize your flight path. Do not give the enemy a predictable target. Make them guess. Make them miss. Another group notices Johnson's use of vertical maneuvers. He did not dogfight horizontally. He used altitude, climbed, dove, used the 3rd dimension. In a flat turning fight, numbers win. In a vertical fight, energy management wins. One skilled pilot can beat many unskilled pilots if he controls the energy. The lessons spread. By June 1944, the P-51 is no longer the mocked death trap. It is the premier American fighter in Europe. Pilots request assignment to Mustang units. The aircraft's reputation has inverted. Now it is the P-47 pilots who grumble. They want Mustangs. They want the range, the speed, the kills. Johnson becomes a training officer. He briefs new pilots, shows them the footage, walks them through the engagement, explains his thought process, why he attacked, how he managed energy, where he made mistakes. Yes, mistakes. He points them out, the times he misjudged deflection, the moments he got slow, the angles he gave away. The new pilots listen. They ask questions. How did you stay calm? How did you track 14 fighters? How did you know when to engage and when to extend? Johnson's answers are practical. You do not track 14. You track 1, the one you are shooting. When that one is gone, you find the next one. You do not think about the total. You think about the immediate problem. Solve it. Move to the next. How did you stay calm? You do not. You are terrified. But you fly anyway. The fear does not stop you. It sharpens you, keeps you alert, keeps you alive. The briefings are recorded, transcribed, distributed. Johnson's words reach pilots in other theaters. Pacific squadrons receive copies. They adapt the lessons, use them against Japanese fighters. The principles are universal: aggression, energy management, unpredictability. They work everywhere. The Luftwaffe notices German pilots begin reporting a shift in American tactics. More aggressive escorts, fighters that do not disengage. Pilots who press attacks despite being outnumbered. The reports filter up. Luftwaffe commanders adjust. They instruct their pilots to avoid prolonged engagements with Mustangs. Strike the bombers, ignore the escorts, disengage quickly. But ignoring the escorts is not always possible. The P-51s stick close to the bombers now. They do not chase every German fighter that appears. They maintain position, protect the heavies. When the Luftwaffe attacks, the Mustangs turn into them, force them to fight, disrupt their attacks. The bombers survive. The mission continues. The strategic effect is profound. The bombing campaign, which nearly collapsed in late 1943, is now sustainable. Loss rates are manageable. Crews complete their tours. Morale improves. The factories in Germany burn. The oil refineries burn. The rail yards burn. The Third Reich's war machine begins to starve. One pilot's 3-minute engagement did not win the air war, but it changed how the air war was fought. It validated an aircraft, shifted a doctrine, gave others the courage to press when logic said run. Johnson flies 73 more missions. He shoots down 6 more German aircraft. He is awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, then the Silver Star, then the Distinguished Flying Cross with clusters. He does not speak much about any of it. Years later, someone asks him about the mission, the one with 14 Germans. Why did he do it? Johnson's answer is simple. There were 10 men in that bomber. They had families. They wanted to go home. He could help. So he did. The interviewer presses, but it was suicide. The odds were impossible. Johnson shrugs. The odds did not matter. The men mattered. That is the only explanation he ever gives. The ripple extends farther than tactics or doctrine. By the summer of 1944, the P-51 Mustang is in full production. North American Aviation's factories in California and Texas run 3 shifts. Thousands of aircraft roll off the lines each month. The Army Air Forces cannot get enough. Every fighter group in Europe is converting or has converted. The P-47 units grumble, but they convert too. The numbers are irrefutable. Kill ratios tell the story. In the first quarter of 1944, P-51 units achieve a 5-1 kill ratio against the Luftwaffe. 5 German fighters destroyed for every Mustang lost. By the second quarter, the ratio climbs to 8-1. The Luftwaffe is bleeding experienced pilots faster than training can replace them. The Americans are gaining experience, learning, adapting. The Mustang's range enables a new mission profile. Fighter sweeps deep into Germany, not escorting bombers. Hunting. Groups of P-51S roam ahead of bomber streams. They seek out German airfields, catch fighters taking off or landing. Vulnerable. Slow. The Mustangs strafe runways, destroy aircraft on the ground, burn fuel depots. The Luftwaffe cannot hide. In May 1944, a single P-51 group destroys 67 German aircraft in one day, 23 in the air, 44 on the ground. The mission lasts 6 hours. The Mustangs fly to Poland and back. No other Allied fighter has the range to attempt it. German commanders realize they have a problem. The Americans can strike anywhere, anytime. The skies over the Reich are no longer safe. Luftwaffe pilots begin to refuse missions. Some defect. Others simply stop showing up. The will to fight erodus. By D-Day, June 6, 1944, the Allies own the sky over France. Thousands of bombers and transports cross the channel. They fly in broad daylight, unmolested. The Luftwaffe makes a few sorties, a handful of interceptions, but they are scattered, ineffective. The P-51S are everywhere patrolling, hunting. The German pilots see them, turn back, land, refuse to take off again. Eisenhower later states that air superiority made the invasion possible. Without it, the landing craft would have been slaughtered on the beaches. The supply lines would have been bombed. The breakout would have failed. Air superiority was not guaranteed by numbers alone. It was guaranteed by reach, by the ability to strike deep, to destroy the enemy before he could threaten the landings. The P-51 provided that reach. But the aircraft's impact goes beyond Europe. In the Pacific, long-range escort has been a problem since 1942. B-29 superfortresses bomb Japan from bases in the Mariana Islands. The Julie is extreme, over 1,500 m one way. No fighter can escort them. The B-29S fly alone. Japanese fighters intercept. Losses mount. In early 1945, P-51 units deploy to Uema. Uema is 750 miles from Tokyo. Close enough. The P-51S with drop tanks can reach the Japanese mainland, escort the B-29S, fight off interceptors. The first mission launches in April 1945. The results mirror Europe. Japanese fighters, skilled but outnumbered, cannot stop the combined force. The B-29S complete their missions, drop their incendiaries, return home. The P-51S clear the way. By August, the air campaign over Japan is total. American aircraft fly wherever they want. The Japanese Air Force is shattered. Industry is burning. Cities are burning. When the atomic bombs fall on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the B-29S that carry them fly unescorted. They do not need escorts. The skies are empty. The war ends. The Mustang's production continues into 1946, then stops. Jets are coming. The future is turbines and swept wings. The piston engine fighter is obsolete, but the P-51 does not disappear. It serves in Korea. Ground attack, close air support, escorting slower aircraft. It is not a match for MiG-15 jets, but it is cheap, reliable, effective against ground targets. It saves lives, then it serves in smaller conflicts, counterinsurgency, border patrol. Some nations fly P-51S into the 1980s, 50 years after its first flight. Few aircraft achieve that longevity. Beyond military service, the Mustang finds a second life: air racing. The P-51's speed and efficiency make it ideal. Racers modify them, clip the wings, boost the engines. They break records, win championships. The Reno air races become a showcase for Mustangs. Thousands watch them scream past at 500 miles per hour, 6 and off the ground, pylons flashing past. Warbird collectors restore them, fly them at air shows. The sound of a Merlin engine at full throttle is unforgettable, a deep rolling thunder. Children stand with their mouths open, veterans weep. The Mustang becomes a symbol not of war, of survival, of ingenuity, of the people who built it and flew it and brought it home. Johnson's specific aircraft, the one he flew on March 6th, does not survive. It is scrapped after the war, cut apart, melted down, recycled. No plaque, no museum, just gone. But the footage remains. The gun camera film is digitized, archived, studied by historians, military analysts, film students. It appears in documentaries, training videos, YouTube compilations. Millions of people watch it. Most do not know Johnson's name, but they see what he did. They see the proof. One pilot alone can change everything. Not through recklessness, not through luck, through skill, courage, and a willingness to act when others would not. The P-51 gave him the tools, but Johnson made the choice. That choice rippled outward through tactics, through doctrine, through the war, through history. It continues to ripple. Every fighter pilot who studies aggression and energy management stands on Johnson's shoulders. Every air combat doctrine that emphasizes initiative over caution echoes his engagement. Every pilot who turns into a threat instead of a way is flying the lesson Johnson taught. The tools change. The aircraft evolve. Jets replace pistons. Missiles replace guns. Stealth replaces speed. But the principles remain. Aggression, energy, unpredictability, courage. They are timeless. They are universal. They are the difference between defeat and victory, between death and survival, between forgetting and remembering. Robert Johnson's 3 minutes over Germany are not forgotten. They live in every fighter pilot's training, in every tactical manual, in every briefing that teaches courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is flying anyway. The P-51 Mustang is not forgotten. It lives in museums, in air shows, in the roar of a Merlin engine over a crowded ramp, in the tears of a veteran who remembers what it felt like to see that silver fighter appear when all hope was gone. They called it a death trap. They mocked it. Then one rookie proved them wrong in 3 minutes against 14 Luftwaffe aces, and the war changed. Robert Johnson returns home in the fall of 1945. The war is over. Europe is rebuilding. The Pacific is silent. Millions of men are demobilizing, trading uniforms for civilian clothes, putting away medals, returning to the lives they left. Johnson goes back to Iowa. The farm is still there. His parents are older, grayer, relieved. They do not ask many questions. He does not offer many answers. There is work to be done, fences to mend, equipment to repair, a tractor that still breaks down weekly. He falls back into the rhythm. Early mornings, long days, the smell of soil and diesel and growing things. It is quiet, simple, the opposite of war. He does not speak about the missions, not to his family, not to neighbors. When people ask, he gives short answers. Yes, he flew fighters. Yes, he saw combat. No, he does not want to talk about it. The local newspaper prints a story. Hometown hero, Distinguished Service Cross, 7 kills. The article is respectful, accurate. Johnson reads it once, never mentions it again. He marries in 1947, a school teacher from the next county, quiet like him. They buy a small house, raise 3 children. He works as a mechanic, then a flight instructor at a local error strip, teaching crop dusters and weekend pilots. The hours are long, the pay is modest. He does not mind. Years pass. Korea happens. Vietnam happens. Johnson watches the news, says little. When veterans groups invite him to speak, he declines. When historians request interviews, he offers brief answers, factual, unemotional. He does not see himself as special. He did his job. Others did more. Many did not come home. In 1977, a researcher from the Air Force Historical Research Agency contacts him. They are compiling records from the 8th Air Force. They have his gun camera footage. They want to confirm details. Johnson agrees to a phone interview. The researcher asks about the engagement on March 6, 1944. Walks through the timeline, the separated element, the crippled bomber, the decision to engage. Johnson corrects small details. The researcher has the altitude wrong, the number of German fighters wrong, 14, not 12. The engagement lasted closer to 4 minutes, not 3. These things matter. The researcher asks the question everyone asks. Why did you attack? Johnson's answer has not changed in 33 years. The bomber needed help. The researcher presses. But you were alone, outnumbered, low on fuel. Johnson pauses, then says something he has never said before. He was scared, more scared than he had ever been. His hands were shaking so hard he could barely hold the stick. But the fear did not matter. The men in that bomber mattered. The researcher asks if he regrets it, if he would do it differently, Johnson thinks, then says, no, he would do it again. Exactly the same. The interview ends. The researcher thanks him, tells him the footage is being used to train modern fighter pilots, that his engagement is studied at the Air Force Academy, that his name is in the textbooks. Johnson does not respond. He hangs up, goes back to work. In 1998, the Commemorative Air Force locates him. They are restoring a P-51. They want to dedicate it to the pilots of the 357th Fighter Group. They ask if Johnson will attend the ceremony. He declines, but his children convince him. You should go, they say. People should know. He attends. The ceremony is small. A hangar in Texas, maybe 200 people, veterans, families, aviation enthusiasts. The restored Mustang sits on the ramp, silver, polished, beautiful. The Merlin engine is running. The sound is exactly as Johnson remembers, deep, powerful, alive. Someone hands him a microphone, asks him to say a few words. Johnson stands there, silent, looking at the aircraft. He has not been this close to a Mustang in 50 years. He walks over, runs his hand along the wing. The metal is cool, smooth. He closes his eyes for a moment. He is 22 again, scared again, alive again. He returns to the microphone, speaks for less than a minute. He thanks the people who restored the aircraft, thanks the people who remember, says the Mustang was a good plane. It saved his life. It saved a lot of lives. That is all. He sits down. The audience applauds. Some are crying. Johnson does not notice. He is looking at the Mustang, remembering. After the ceremony, younger pilots approach. They have questions, tactical questions. How did you manage energy in a vertical fight? How did you track multiple threats? How did you stay aggressive when outnumbered? Johnson answers patiently, thoroughly. These are questions he can answer. Mechanics, physics, logic. These things make sense. One young pilot asks a different question. How did you find the courage? Johnson looks at him, really looks. The kid is maybe 25, fighter pilot, probably F-16S, confident, skilled, untested. Johnson tells him the truth. You do not find courage. Courage is not something you have or do not have. Courage is what you do when you are terrified. When every instinct says run, when the arithmetic says you will die, you act anyway, not because you are brave, because someone needs help, and you are there. The young pilot nods, thanks him, walks away. Johnson watches him go, wonders if the kid understood, wonders if anyone can understand until they are there alone, outnumbered, making the choice. Robert Johnson dies in 2006. He is 84, surrounded by family, quiet, peaceful. His obituary in the local paper is brief: veteran, mechanic, father, grandfather. It mentions the Distinguished Service Cross does not explain why. The Air Force Academy hears of his passing. They fly a missing man formation over his funeral. 4 P-51S. One breaks away, climbs, disappears into the sun. His children donate his medals to a museum, his logbook, his flight suit. They are displayed in a case next to a photograph. Johnson, 22 years old, standing beside a Mustang, smiling, alive. Visitors stop, read the plaque, learn the story. Some linger, some move on, but the story remains. It is taught to every fighter pilot, studied in every air combat course, cited in every manual on tactical aggression. The lesson is simple. One person can make a difference. Not through recklessness, through skill and courage and a willingness to act. The tools change, the wars change, the enemies change. But the lesson does not. When you see someone who needs help, you help. Even if the odds are impossible, even if you are alone, even if you are scared, you act. Because that is what courage is, not the absence of fear, the defiance of it. Robert Johnson defied fear for 3 minutes over Germany. He saved 10 men. He changed a doctrine. He proved an aircraft. He taught a lesson. The lesson echoes through time, through wars, through generations. It echoes still. In every fighter pilot who turns into a threat instead of a way. In every person who stands when others sit. In every choice to act when logic says freeze. The Mustang was just a machine. Aluminum and steel and a brilliant engine. It did not win the war. People won the war. People like Robert.